welcome once again friends to this NPTEL module on international trade theories and empirics. We are on the verge of the last module, week number 12, where we are trying to give some case analysis of international trade, where some group of countries or the countries experience major improvement from a crisis ridden economy to a miracle. And we have collected information. I have collected information so that we can clarify how these countries have corrected their balance of payment problem and proved as the developed countries from underdeveloped and developing country status. So, let us start explaining the East Asian miracle in the last week of the module. To count down the backdrop of East Asian miracle, we will explain about some facts on rapid economic growth in terms of GDP per capita GDP. So, then persistence of rapid economic growth, that is GDP growth as well as their persistence, and unprecedented long period of economic expansion over 25 years is important. Now, also we will discuss about achievement of economic parity, then how economic parity occurs among those countries, is there any extent of convergence will also be discussed. Then political stability aspect will also be identified, like whether the just growth is not enough, whether those growth accompanied with benevolent dictatorship. Okay, so basically some extent of sustainability of their growth would also be discussed. Then regarding export oriented industrial policy adopted and that has explained the abandonment of import substitution installation and instead of import substitution installation we discussed in the previous lecture, they facilitated with the export orientation. And at the end we will also emphasize on the stable macroeconomic management to explain the East Asian miracle. These are the facts which we wanted to cite for the East Asian miracle. Now, coming to the growth aspects per capita GDP and its persistence, I wanted to mention that from 1965 till 90, the average growth of GNP per capita in the East Asia and in other economies, South Asia and high performing Asian economies, SPAE, and then those are actually highest performing Asian economies are like Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand. Then South Asian countries, Middle East and Mediterranean countries, then Sub-Saharan Africa, OECD economies and Latin America and Caribbean, we are comparing their growth rate during this period. The data source is taken from World Bank in 1992 period published paper. Then we observe that those high performing Asian economies, their growth rate was higher as against East Asian countries. So, now coming to their change, the persistency of their GDP per capita from that in that period, we observe that the change is also much higher, like in Taiwan, that is China, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Singapore and Republic of Korea experienced huge growth rate along with Botswana also. Then other two we are also suggesting here to count the East Asian miracle is through Malaysia and Thailand, etc. Now, the top 20 included here, middle 20 and bottom 20. So, the HPAE are highlighted with the green color and other East Asian countries are also included in the top 20 record. We are referring to the Summers and Heston 1988 paper. Now, some other facts that will accommodate to the explanation of East Asian miracle are through the average real GDP the GDP in 1997 and per capita GDP in 1997. So, average real GDP in 1980, 92, 1991, 97. There are countries we are referring, we already mentioned the average GDP, real GDP also increased hugely. To count, China experienced 9.8% and 10.3% in both this period of reference. Then it followed by Korean experience, then Singapore experience, even Thailand. They have very huge average real growth rate. Now, as per the World Bank's East Asian miracle explanation, we have just cited Asian economies like Japan, then Asian and other groups. We can count a few factors like well educated labor force, then stable financial markets or environment related to the high saving rate which explain the case, then stable macroeconomic management, then that is basically low national debt and low inflation, then high degree of trade openness and high level of bureaucratic quality and stable politics. So, those are the factors World Bank mentioned about the East Asian miracle. Now, as a comparison of saving rates as percentage of GDP, now we can observe that Japan experienced the highest in all those 4 periods 1970 till 2000. Japan as well as East Asian excluding Japan experienced the huge saving rate that has translated into capital investment and then major growth. Now, as a comparison of saving rates percentage of GDP, we found that China, then Singapore have shown a better percentage as compared to other nations in all those 4 periods. Now, so far as the understanding of openness to international trade is concerned, how these economies are open to the world and whether openness is responsible for the miracle to occur or not, we have seen that in almost all those East Asian countries and except even East Asian countries except Hong Kong, both experienced huge openness. Their total volume of trade is much higher than compared to the other economies in the world. Now, how to explain this and what are the reasons behind the explanation of the miracle? Another factor for this explanation is called export led growth. Export led growth, we are referring to 5 periods, that is 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 90s and 2000. Every decade we have seen that the East Asia and in East Asia minus Hong Kong experienced huge export led growth. Then since we have already mentioned about the export the trade openness. Similarly, United Nations, United States and Japan experience individually, if you count down for Japan it is lesser, but still higher than that of United States. But the United States experienced less openness during that time, even in the recent period as compared to the East Asia as a group. What about reliance on foreign countries, how dependent they are as a percentage of their gross national income? So, total debt service as a percentage of GNI, we found that found that China the dependence is very less, even India it is quite good. I think in the recent newspaper, if you compare to the national dailies like Business Standard, even Economic Times, they have repeatedly talked about India's less dependence as compared to other developing countries. So, here the figure clarifies well for the explanation. Especially during that period it was less, but later on I think they are progressively going for reaching further self-reliance model. Now, less reliance on foreign countries, to count that we have the data here as compared to other countries. Now, here the figure explains about total debt service as a percentage of exports of goods and services. So far as the explanation for agriculture raw materials exports as percentage of merchandise exports is concerned, Malaysia experienced highest in the very beginning period, that is 1965, and even till the 1975, also till 1985, followed by Thailand, then Indonesia, then Singapore. Okay. So, in all the front these countries experienced their progress much better than any other countries in the world. Now, manufacturers exports as percentage of merchandise exports, we have seen that as compared to those East Asia with United States, manufacturing exports Hong Kong, China, Hong Kong, here Japan, then Korean Republic, as compared to United States, those are higher. So, in the recent years, I think Singapore has picked up much better, even Thailand as well as Korean Republic and Hong Kong, China, Hong Kong. All right. So, now let us explain, these are the estimation made by World Bank report, it is not of my calculation. So, to make it very clear that you may also refer to that report on estimation miracle of World Bank report. So, here the explanation is in comparison with 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. So, Japan, especially in which particular aspect were famous, export orientation related to textile and lighter goods, and in the 60s somewhere they are referring to heavy industries. Korea promoted and adopted the ISI in the beginning period, that is till 50. Later on, export promotion or orientation model adopted for textile, sugar and heavy industries, which has led their growth path. Now, similarly, Hong Kong, so 3 export orientation for textile, plastic, electronics goods and finance. Now, coming to the Taiwan model, especially for ISI was adopted initially, but later on they removed that approach. Then they got into the export orientation strategy, especially for light goods, agriculture, processed food product, then heavy industries. Now, 65, after the 65 and its independence, Singapore adopted the export orientation through FDI. So, high value added products were actually facilitated through FDI in Singapore. Then in comparison to all those 3 other countries we are referring, like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia and Philippines, they adopted little later, but ISI was higher for agriculture product, import substitution installation was majorly for agriculture product. Especially from 1980s and 90s, they picked up for export orientation policy. Thailand started around mid of 1970 on textile through FDI promotion, then machineries in Malaysia, then FDI promotion in Indonesia. Similarly, electric crisis and issues have been dealt through FDI in Philippines. So, this is one of the very good explanation. You may prepare for your quiz questions. Okay. From this, in which country and why this division is important, in which period onwards they picked up, explanations are given, and these are from the original sources. Now, to explain further, I think it's important to mention that what kind of lessons we learn from this explanation. That first of all, we will explain development theory and its connection to the experience that has been presented, then Japanese experience, what this tells us. So far as the development theory suggests that saving rate is important, technological, that is total factor productivity, is also important, improvement in productivity level of the primary industry is also important. Now, coming to the explanation for Japanese experience, which is explained about the East Asian miracle is on saving rate, good financial infrastructure, technological transfer, then export oriented industrial policy, then political stability, then strong government initiatives. So, governance and political stability are also one of the important factor. I think in Indian model these two are highly questionable and often the case, public outcries are there. I think it is a better lesson from those East Asian miracle issues. Now, from the next class, I think I should stop here. I will talk about further from the next class on East Asian model. We will start from here only, and I will explain a few from other experiences of East Asian crisis, East Asian miracle. Okay, so let me stop here. We will start the next class soon. Okay, thank you.